What up, y'all? Welcome back to the Mic Check podcast. It's your boy T Word, the People's Champ. Here, my co-host Quinton Lilley. We're back in this thing, and today we're gonna talk about some boxing. We did our show already, and we just felt like there's a topic that we just had to break out and
Yeah.
do a breakout session of its own. We want to talk about um, American fighters and the inactivity. Just why aren't American fighters
Mm.
more active? I'm gonna throw it to you to begin.
Yeah, man. I think really you kind of can line it out as a couple of things. Number one, boxing has become probably more lucrative than it's ever been. So having to pay fighters, more money means they got to take longer to make the fights, to promote the fights, to make sure that they're going to get as much money, revenue wise, the promoters are as possible. Your second thing probably is a lot of these guys are unfortunately wanting to get to the top level a lot faster in their careers. So they're
Mhm.
kind of skipping steps. I look at a small example like Oscar de la Hoya in 1995. He fought 5 times in a calendar year as a world champion at lightweight.
Wow.
You you don't hear about that anymore. I mean, gone are the days of fighters getting to, 40, 50 fights. I mean, we have guys retiring now at 23, 24, 25 career professional fights.
Right.
And a lot of these guys don't even have extensive amateur careers. I mean, you could understand that for a guy like, like a Artur Beterbiev or a Triple G or a Lomachenko, guys who stay in that amateur system till they're in their mid 20s, late 20s.
Right.
For American fighters, a lot of American fighters are very much quickly trying to get into the pro game. And it's real unfortunate because, I mean, you skip steps, and while you might be able to get away with it sometimes, ultimately you never reach that pinnacle of where you really should be. Because the only way
Right.
you get better at boxing is to box. You
Yeah.
can't do that in sparring the same way you do it in real fights.
You got to fight for real.
Mhm.
I agree with you. Um, I like the point that you brought up there about guys that have the extensive amateur background are typically for us foreigners, right?
Mhm.
But guys over here on American soil, if they're not Olympians, they're trying to get into the pro ranks 18, 19, no
Yep.
later than 20, and they're off and running.
Mhm.
The outlier is a guy like Devin Haney, who's actually really active
Yeah.
considering where he's at in his career at
Right.
25, 24, 25 years old. Devin
24. Just
Haney
turned
has
24 this past week. Yeah.
24. Okay. And I believe Devin has as many fights as Errol.
Yeah.
Another guy who's kind of an anomaly is Boots Ennis, who's also 24, 25. He has as many fights as Errol Spence.
Yeah.
That just kind of tells you Devin just got his true championships.
Mhm.
Boots is on the verge. He's gonna be a welterweight champion sometime in
Yeah.
2023, from what I can tell. That being said, those are the outliers, and that's a shame because most of the fighters they're coming in and they're getting title shots with 15 fights.
Mhm.
Once they get that belt, those dudes ain't fighting no more.
Sitting
They're
on.
like, bro, you gonna see me twice a year, and you're gonna get a pay per view. I'm not. I'm gonna go to PBC and Showtime and Fox, and I'm gonna fight 1 to 2 times a year and defend this belt when I have to.
Yep.
At least top rank. From what I can tell right now, their prospects are going to be moving much quicker. Those guys are fighting 3 to 4 times a year, and I love it. Keyshawn Davis is super active, and you have to respect that. And he's a little bit older than the average guy who's come in from the amateur ranks by comparison, but he's not wasting any time trying to get to the championship level. He's been pro with just about 2 years, and he's going into his six or seven fight. The
Mhm.
rest of these guys are just sitting on those belts, and it's like you said, it's about the money, man. The business of boxing is starting to create these wild animals in terms of the mindset of, hey, I'm not fighting unless my belt's on the line, and I'm gonna get this huge purse. I want a big guarantee, and then I need to back in too. Foreign fighters, because I think that there's so many levels of respected championships over there. Like you got like the Commonwealth and the British, and then they've also got these other worldwide recognized belts that
European
have so much.
championships, regional championships. Yep.
For
Mhm.
sure. Those guys are active because they're constantly trying to move up the rankings to get a piece of those belts because that puts them in a position to make the money anyway. And they're being rewarded for activity versus being rewarded for one level of success. So in America, it's like, oh, I got a belt. Now you got to chase me to get me to fight and get this money. Whereas over there, it's like, well, I got this belt, and that gives me some status to get on this part of the card. But when I get that next belt, I'm starting to move higher up the card. So from that perspective, I can respect it, even though it domesticates them to some degree. It creates activity. Whereas over here, nobody cares about the NABO enough for it to matter. The IBO. And there was a time where when they had the USBA and all that stuff, way when you was a
Yeah.
young kid,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, I'm old.
Right. Right.
Those belts meant something because it showed that you were moving up. So it made you want to stay active because you couldn't even keep that belt if you weren't active. They would take it from you in a heartbeat and put somebody else in there and keep them moving up. Um, I just think that because it's become such a money grab and the prestige of some of the other secondary belts has been diminished so far, like you don't even hear when it's an NABF championship. They
No.
don't even talk about it.
No.
And that's
No.
important because you're working hard. The Continental Championship, they don't talk about these things, and I think that that hurts the sport of boxing in the U.S. because people only recognize these four belts and these division, and that's it. And there's people that's down here working hard to get to these other levels. If they put the prestige back in those championships, those fighters that think once they get to the number one, the WBC belt or the WBA super belt, that they don't have to do anything. It takes that away because they see that they have to stay busy and level up. And then when you've gotten to a certain amount of fights, more than likely, then you can get a true championship.
Yeah.
Do you do you see do you see that also, or am I tripping?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of what you said was legit. I think that the one thing I will say and I will argue is that Jaron Ennis currently he's going he's going downhill when it comes to the activity side. I'm gonna just read you what his last it's like looks like his last 6 fights or so. So he
Okay.
fought 3 times, or excuse me, 2 times in 2019. He fought 3 times in 2020. He fought twice in 2021. He fought all of once in 2022. And it's a running gag right now on Twitter that Jaron Ennis in this year, since he fought Custio Clayton, which was back on May
That was
14th,
May. Uh-huh.
Custio Clayton on that undercard of I think it was Malik.
Charlo. No, it's
Oh,
Charlo.
Charlo, yeah,
Hmm.
Jamel Charlo
Undisputed.
against
Castano.
Castano, exactly. Thank
Hmm.
you. He's announced 3 different times on social media that Fight News was coming. Fight News coming in July.
Yeah.
Fight News coming in September. Fight News coming in November. And nothing ever gets announced. And I think the one thing I can say is that I think with the more money that these fighters are making, what it's also making them, quite frankly and quite honestly, it's making them lazy.
Facts.
When you make $2 million and you ain't never seen $2 million in your life,
Yeah.
you like, oh, I'm good. I don't I don't need to go out there and, run every morning for 8 weeks to have another fight. And you ain't gonna pay me as much as you pay me for the last fight. I'm gonna have to make less than that. Oh no, I ain't
Right.
gonna, never mind. I'm good. Never mind.
Yeah.
Nah. I'm gonna chill, save my bread, invest it if I invest it. And while I think that that's awesome, right? Like I think I take like guys like the Charlo brothers. You got Jamal, he ain't fought in 17 months.
Yeah.
You got Jermell, who fought once last year against Castano,
Hmm.
once this year against Castano again. They scheduled him a fight 4 months in advance. Why are you scheduling him a fight 4 months in advance? Why are you not scheduling that fight 2 months in advance while he's training? Get him back in there. He could
Yeah.
have took care of this mandatory in November.
Yeah.
And then you could have turned around and you could have either moved him up to 160. You could have had him take on Fondora next year. You could have. There's a number of people that PBC has already been grooming and lining up at 154 to fight for those titles.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make much sense to me. And the only thing that I can say is that while these guys have done really, really well with their money, it seems like all of them, do well financially outside of boxing, whether it's in businesses or real estate or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
That's great for their personal gain. But for their boxing gain, it's not. It's killing them. It's really, really, honestly, it's stunning their growth. That's why I think you don't see 3, 4, 5, 6 division champions anymore, because these guys stagnate at a certain weight class for so long that they never accomplish what they first set out to do in that weight class. So then they never end up getting to move up. I mean, the perfect example, look at Errol. Errol's
Yeah.
in a position where he won his first belt in 2017. The
Right.
first fight I ever seen him fight was the fight before that. I think it was Cornelius Bundrich he fought right before he fought for the world title against Kell Brook. And ever since then, he's been talking about strap season, strap season, strap season. It's time to get these straps. It's time to get these straps. Now, while he's had 2 major injuries, things
Yeah.
that he can't control, well,
2 years out the ring.
one of them he could control.
Right. Facts.
When you only are conditioned and used to fighting twice a year, as soon as an injury happens, that goes to once a year right there.
Yeah.
And it's been 5 years, and he still hasn't been able to get the undisputed fight over the line. And there's a lot of other reasons why I think that, that's why the order got messed up.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, when Canelo went to undisputed, what did he do? He got all the belts on his side, but he first initially tried to get the belt on the other side, because that's always the hardest fight to make, is to fight with the other promoter.
Mm-hmm.
He first went to 168. He talked about fighting Caleb Plant first. Now, that didn't happen because Caleb wasn't ready. He needed a longer camp or whatever the situation was. But that's who he first went to when he came to 68. He wanted to fight the other guy on the other side of the street first, before he then tried to get all the belts that were already on his side. And now you see Errol's fighting the same battle now, where he got all the belts on his side, but now he's trying to have to get the one other thing he needs. The dude is 32 years old. He's been at welterweight since he was an amateur.
Yeah.
It's
He's definitely lingered. And, in his defense, I would say those 2 years that he lost about a little over 24 months out of the ring between the injury and the accident. Like you said, one self-inflicted, one business of boxing, right? Or just boxing as a sport. That being said, he's had 8 years to work his way up and then try and unify. So I'd say over the last 5 years since he got his title, 2 of those years were out. So in 3 years, 3 titles. You got to do it now, or I would just say, hey man, sometimes what we want, it just don't happen. And what you said earlier about them guys making money and getting lazy, I dreamed I had a fight coming up for myself for $10 million. I don't know who I was boxing, but I woke up feeling just a little bit less like working out this morning. So I agree with you 100%. But folks, that's gonna wrap it up for us on this one. Do you think that American fighters are just too inactive, and why do you think? Be sure to let us know in the comments. Go ahead and like, share, subscribe. Keep in tune with us because we're bringing that great content. This has been T Word and Quinton Lilley. Until the next time, this has been the Mic Check Podcast. Peace.